Good evening, everyone. This meeting will be held in accordance with Executive Order N2920 issued by the California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 17th, 2020. The Ralph M. Brown Act, California Government Code, Section 54950, ET sequence, and the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. This meeting will not be physically open to the public. All members of the public may participate and comment via application Zoom. Zoom meeting information and call information was posted on the agenda on the city's website. Remote public comment is also available by emailing the city clerk at cityclerk@ci.series.ca.us. The city clerk will read your comments into the recorded during the City Council Chambers meeting located 2701 4th Street today, Monday, January 11, 2021, starting at 6 p.m. Call this meeting to order. Can I get the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Rhino,
Here.
Councilmember Silvera,
Here.
Vice Mayor Condit,
Here.
and Mayor Lopez.
Here. Pastor, excuse me if I get this wrong, Gianosa will give the invocation with the Pledge of Allegiance to follow. Invocation by Pastor Tim Gianosa, Big Valley Grace Series, California. Are you there, Tom?
There we are. Thank you.
There he is.
Sorry about that. I just want to thank you for allowing me to do this and to be here tonight, and welcome. And let me open us up in prayer. Father, thank you so much for these men and women who have gathered here, who are serving our community, who are, Father, giving their time and their resources, their energy, their knowledge, their experience. We thank you for them, and we thank you for the task that they have ahead of them. Ask that you give them great wisdom and insight as they lead, as they make decisions, that they would be like the leaders of Issachar who knew and understood their times and made decisions and set the right course for their people. And their people experienced unity and peace and tranquility, and their people experienced great prosperity. The Father, that these leaders would understand their times, would understand what's ahead of them, would understand what their community needs, and they would have the wisdom to act in a righteous manner to benefit those that they lead. So, Father, we thank you for them, and give them great wisdom, and give them prosperity, and give them great hope for tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Do the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God.
Citizens communication. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the City Council meetings, adopted rules allow no more than 5 minutes. Resolution number 2007-106. The expression for the non-agenda items, matters under the jurisdiction of the City Council and not on the posted agenda, may be addressed by the general public. However, California law prohibits the City Council to take any action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda, unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Citizens are entitled to address the City Council on any agenda item subject to the 5-minute provision. Public comments will now be accepted through Zoom. For those participating through the web, please raise your hand to request to speak on the hand icon bottom of your screen. If you are participating by telephone, please press 9 on your phone. The city clerk will call your name in order to request all received. When it is time for you to speak, the city clerk will unmute your microphone. City clerk, please provide the names of each person that is requested to speak.
Yes, Mayor. First person is Lee Brandt. Mr. Brandt, I will unmute your mic.
Well, good evening. I will say it was a little bit different getting into the Zoom meeting tonight because there wasn't a link, but I finally figured it out. I just want to kind of remind the council that, you know, we got our garbage revision coming up. You know, we're going to wind up with 3 cans. I sent a picture of my neighbor's can that has been overloaded since Friday, and it's outside, and I have to look at it, and I just wanted to kind of remind the council that maybe they should probably relook at putting the cans behind a fence or something like that. And Happy New Year to you all. And that's all I got. Take care.
Next person is Dave Pratt. Mr. Pratt, I will unmute your mic.
This is Dave Pratt. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Hello?
yes, we can hear
Can you
you.
hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes,
I hope everybody enjoyed the fireworks for New Year's. But anyways, I want to talk about the dog park. You guys are cutting the lawns too short. You need to raise the blades up a couple notches. All you're getting is the grass is turning to dirt and mud holes. Also, talking to some of the other people over there, skateboarders have been going over there, and there's a utility gate that doesn't have a lock on it. They've been opening that gate up when there's dogs in there, and the dogs been getting out, and they've been using the duty bags to clean the mud off their skateboards. But anyways, you need to see about you're letting the grass die off. There's and they also told me that one of the parks nearby is the same way. It's weeds are growing because way too short. So you need to think about raising the blades on the lawnmowers. Okay.
Thank you.
Next person.
You
is-
understand what I was saying?
Yes, sir. Is there any comments on email, City Clerk?
I believe John Warren had his hand raised.
Do we have one more actually on Zoom? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Warren.
Good evening, council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening again. John Warren here, District 1. Tonight, the council is going to make some appointments under A and B regarding to the commission and Measure H positions. And these positions and appointments will be for several years, and the folks here in District 1 don't have any representation on the council at this time. So I would request that you wait until you have a full council before these appointments are made. In addition, I want to again comment the same as Lee Brandt just did in regards to the garbage cans and the toters. Very soon, there's going to be 11,000 of them out there in addition to what we have already. And then the fireworks issues the city will face shortly. There was comment back in July, just after the 4th last year, about the problems that the city had at that time. So these are issues that I think the council needs to address sooner rather than later, especially in regards to fireworks, because if there's changes made, which maybe you should consider, some of our nonprofits are going to need time to adjust their process. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Once again, is there anybody on email that?
Yes, Mayor, I have one comment through email. It is from Megan Mizuno from the Ceres Library.
Okay.
She states, I'd like to provide an update on the modified services the Ceres Library is offering. We are currently offering reference and information assistance by phone with no contact pickup of library materials and computer access by appointment. Digital materials, including ebooks, e-audios, and streaming media, are available 24/7 on our website. Our modified hours of operation are Monday through Thursday, 12 to 6 p.m., Friday, 11 a.m. to 5, closed Saturdays and Sundays. All of our regular e-resources are still available to you, including Cupola Digital and Cloud Library. Please visit our website at stanislauslibrary.org for a full list of the e-resources. We are also providing additional content on the Stanislaus County Library Facebook account, such as virtual story time and virtual bilingual story are being streamed live on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. Other upcoming events include virtual trivia night, book chats, virtual art class, and a virtual gardening program. Please visit the events and class section on our webpage for a full list of events. We currently have a winter reading challenge going on January 31st, 2021. It's open to all readers. For more information on how to sign up, please visit the series library. If you have any questions about our services and how to access them, please visit stanislauslibrary.org.
Thank you. We have no more public comments.
No, Mayor.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to appointments and board commissions. Well, I will begin with the confirmations of the 2021 mayoral appointments of council members to boards, commissions, and committees. We can we can either choose to confirm this, or if anybody wants to speak to this matter. Yeah, I want to talk about that first, if that's okay with you guys. Ms. Rhino?
Yes, I would like to have my appointment to the Concerts in the Park Committee exchanged for the Stanislaus Elder Abuse Prevention Alliance, SEPA.
Okay. And which number is that, Miss Council Member? Oh, number 12. Mr. 12. That one was open, okay. And
So
you would
from-
like to be off of, or also continue with the,
I would like to exchange 6 for
okay, I think that's okay. If the city clerk will write that down, I'm gonna go ahead and enter Ms. Rhino for the Elders Prevention Abuse Program. Is there anything else that anybody would like to contest, or are we okay with moving on with this confirmation of all 22 positions? And just for the record, there is some open slots, and I did leave them open for the future, just for the purposes of maybe District 1. Once we get to that point, maybe that will be able to be appointed to these positions. So I just wanted to note that for everybody here today. Is there anything else anybody would like to discuss on this matter? If not, I would like to motion to confirm the 2021 memorial appointments for council members to the boards, commissions, and committees.
Second.
Can I get a vote on that, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Rhino,
yes.
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit,
Yes.
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes,
Motion passes 4-0.
thank you. And for the Planning Commission and Measure H Oversight Committee, we did have some interviews. And I would like to start off by thanking everybody who participated in those interviews and taking the time to come out here and speak to us. For the Planning Commission, the recommendations for the Planning Commission are as follows. Excuse me 1 second while I bring up that appointment, which I do not have right in front of me, but off the top of my head, I remember that me and Ms. Rhino went ahead and we appointed 3 positions. I do not have the names in front of me, but if somebody would please jump in and remind me who those 3 persons are, please.
We reappointed Commissioner Gary Del Nero, Bob Catchell,
Okay,
and then to fill the unexpired term of now Councilperson Silvera, we chose Daniel Martinez.
okay. Does anybody want to, it's open for discussion if anybody would like to discuss this particular?
You know, I would like to address what Mr. Warren commented earlier, that we
Okay.
should wait until we have someone in District 1.
Okay.
I don't really believe that has a bearing because everyone in the city was invited to submit their application.
Okay,
And as such, typically the mayor and one other council member interview. In this case, I'm District 2. The mayor may be the at-large, but he also lives within District 1. And the people that we chose came from, well, the people who actually interviewed, who we chose, came from District 1, 3, and 4. There were no applicants from District 2.
I agree with Councilmember Rhino, and I'll move to approve those three names that the mayor already announced.
Cooper?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Warren. Missing a council person, this is the majority of the planning commission that we're appointing tonight. Measure H is a little different. There's only 2 members. We are appointing 3 members to the commission. And we just got through an election, to be fair, where voters rejected the incumbents at City Hall. And we're going to approve folks that have been on the planning commission for 12 years, which I have a problem with on its face. I agree with term limits, which I'm more than happy to vote on tonight, for 12 years on the planning commission, with which both Bob and Gary have served an honorable 12 years. I think they've done a great job. I was honored to serve with them, but 12 years should be enough time to move on. So I cannot support this. If we are going to vote on these applicants, I would like to take them one at a time.
Mayor, if you release Vice Mayor, you'll see that I'm asking to speak as well.
Yes, Ms. Councilmember, go
Okay,
ahead.
I would disagree with your comment about term limits because there aren't term limits for the city council. So why should there be for the planning commission? If we waited until seat 1 was filled, the only thing that would change would be the voting because, as you know, the mayor and I did the interviewing. The mayor and Councilmember Silvera did the interviewing, and they make the recommendation. If you choose to not vote for the people that we chose for, that's fine. But I don't think putting someone in the seat next to me is going to make a difference. We opened the applications to everyone in the city. And again, the mayor is in District 1 right now. And if you want to go down that avenue that you think we need a full council, then we probably shouldn't have voted for vice mayor until we had a full council, because one of the council members that voted was going to be on this body for another month. So we probably shouldn't have done that either, if you want to be honest about it.
Well, again, that's the council's prerogative.
Well,
That's my position, that I don't think we should move forward with this until we have a full council, since we are voting for a majority of planning commissioners. And when it comes to term limits, Councilwoman, I agree that the city council should have term limits. So to be transparent, those are my beliefs. 12 years should be enough time to serve your time honorably, whether it's city, county, state, or federal, and move along.
Mayor, I would like to, if no one else has any comment, I would like to make a motion that,
We have a motion on the
oh,
floor.
we have a motion.
Councilmember.
Okay.
Well, let me interject. Okay, so for full transparency, I see it from both aisles. I understand that District 1 may not feel that they have a say in this. And yes, we did choose a vice mayor without fifth person. If I were to say that I did motion and agree with Cooper, where would this stand? We would just be setting back the time clock, correct?
Mr. Hallinan can correct me where I'm wrong, but essentially Bob and Gary would continue their duties as planning commissioners until replaced.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. Now, this is a tough decision for me because I agree with Ms. Rhino in many ways, and I agree with Cooper in many ways. But I think at the end of the day, we need to be very transparent and be confident in your positions as they stand, that if we do decide to postpone with this particular one, that once we do have that additional person for District 1, we'll continue to make the right decisions. I'm gonna say that I agree with Cooper on this particular reason, only just because of transparency, and we should hold off.
Just so you know, Mayor, we've never done that before. Unless the council didn't want somebody on the planning commission anymore, we've reappointed those that have reapplied. I just want to make sure you understand that.
Yeah, I understand that. And sometimes, I understand the changes can be difficult, but I want to make sure that we are transparent. And like I said, I believe that everybody on this council do bring up good points. And that is basically something that I want to make sure that we stay focused on, we stay transparent, because at the end of the day, the public does have their opinions, and we should be transparent. I will repeat that once again. So I think on this particular measure for the Planning Commission, I'm going to second Cooper's motion, and
Oh, wait,
I didn't make-
we
sorry,
have a
we already
motion.
have a motion. I'm sorry, I apologize. So can we go for a vote? City Clerk, please.
Motion hasn't been seconded.
Yes.
Second. Yes.
Yes.
No.
And Mayor Lopez,
No.
2-2.
Moving on to the Measure H Committee. I could see that everybody would have similar arguments, but I believe that the recommendations that me and Silvera recommended for this measure, I motion that we pass Measure H Oversight Committee appointments.
You haven't said who they are.
The persons that we appointed is Rosalinda Vieira and Joshua Steele. If I can get a second to pass Measure H Committee appointments, please.
Wait,
Yes, ma'am.
you want to pass these, but you don't want to have the fifth person in the chair? How is that different than planning?
Well, I think it's different because 3 to 2, the simple math of having a majority members is uncomfortable without having all of our council members.
Okay, well, I think if we can't make a decision until we have a full council for planning commission, the same should apply for Measure H. To me, it's the same thing. You want transparency, you want everybody to be up here to vote, so let's just do that.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with that.
Is that a motion, Councilwoman?
That is a motion to postpone.
I'll second.
Can we get a vote, please?
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes,
Councilmember Silvera,
Tough, but yes.
Vice Mayor Condon,
Aye.
and Mayor Lopez.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
And I don't know if we can speak to it as far as thanking everybody who applied. Once again, this is a very difficult decision, but I believe that in the end, this will benefit everybody. Okay, so we're going to move on to conflict of interest for the declarations. Is there anybody in the council that would like to declare a conflict of interest for the consent calendar? Nobody? Okay, for the consent calendar, all matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by a single motion unless otherwise requested by an individual council member or the public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by roll call vote. Is there anyone on the city council that would like to pull an item from the consent calendar.
Yes, Mayor. Items 6 and 7.
Okay, 6 and 7. Anybody else? No? Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like a consent item pulled for further discussion? If so, please select the hand icon on the Zoom.
Raised his hand.
John Warren?
John Warren raised
Okay,
his
go ahead.
hand.
Would be item 12.
Item 12. Oh,
It's
item
a
12,
public
actually,
hearing.
It's a public
Yeah.
hearing for item 12. So that will be discussed to the public.
I could wait until the proper time to make my comment.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, before we move forward, let's go ahead and pull number 6. We can discuss that first. Number 6, resolution number 2021-01, awarding the construction contract for the well 42 design and construction to Conco West Incorporated, authorize a 10% contingency approval of a budget amendment, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Excuse me.
Mayor Lopez, what we typically do is we can approve the consent calendar and then
Oh, and
we'll
then,
act
okay, and then
separately
we'll
on
go back to
items 6 and
My
7.
apologies. Okay, let's go ahead and I motion to approve the consent calendars except for number 6 and 7. Can I get a second?
Second.
That was a quick second. City Clerk, can we go ahead and get a vote, please?
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit,
Aye.
and Mayor Lopez.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Let's go ahead and discuss number 6. And go ahead, Mr. Cooper, what would you like to address on number 6?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a few questions for city staff. Mr. Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy is on Zoom, so he can hear you, Councilman Condit.
Okay, good. How many current active wells are supplying the city of Ceres with water?
13.
13. So this will add us up to 14, correct?
Correct.
And how many wells in the city are in danger of contamination or likely to be shut off in the next 2 years?
At any given time, there can be a number of them. Right now, we've got 6 wells that have TCP that's over the MCL. We're treating one for arsenic. We're treating one for uranium. At any given time, we could have one that just changes. The environment changes on us pretty much daily anymore with the drought. Our pumping levels are changing drastically and it's causing differences. We've got high TDS showing up in some of the wells to where we haven't had that historically. So it's a challenge.
And what sort of addition will this be to our supply, our water supply here in Ceres?
We're hoping for 25 to 30%. Right now, we're pumping about 8,000 to 9,000 gallons a minute out of the groundwater system, and this will add, as designed, about 1,200 GPM.
Great. Thank you. Thank you,
welcome.
Mayor.
Okay, let's go ahead and discuss item number 7, which is accepting the 2020 Central Avenue.
Mayor,
Let's
about that,
I'll
Matt.
move to approve resolution number 2021-001, item number 6.
Second. Let's go for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit.
Aye.
And Mayor Lopez.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item number 7, resolution number 2021-02, accepting the 2020 Central Avenue Water Main Rehab and Service Replacement Project as complete, approving the balancing contract change order, authorizing the filling of the notice of completion and releasing retention to the contractor, Badia.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Now, my question here is, will the addition of surface water in the future have any impact on our current water infrastructure?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Will the addition of surface water have any impact on our current water infrastructure, pipelines, or?
Yeah, I would defer that question to Jeremy. He's, this project, I guess that question's not really pertaining to this project, but let me defer to Jeremy.
So
Jeremy?
yeah, so the addition of surface water is going to add an additional consistent supply, a reliable supply of water to the system at 5 million gallons per day. If you think about it, it's during the summertime, we're in excess of about 11 to 12 million gallons per day. So that additional water needs to be made up by the groundwater system. So what that means is that the additional wells, all the wells are going to have to maintain, as well as the infrastructure. There's going to be a number of infrastructure improvement projects coming to council for approval in the next 2 to 3 years. Daniel and I have been working on 5-year, 10-year CIP plans that have a lot of water main replacement projects in there. We're looking to replace water meters. There's just a lot of infrastructure needs coming very soon.
Okay, thank you. And I'll move to approve item number 7, resolution number 2021-02.
Second. We get a roll call, please.
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit.
Aye.
And Mayor Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, so we have no unfinished business items on this evening. We're going to move on to public hearing, number 11. Public hearing to consider the Second Amendment Development Agreement by and between the City of Ceres and Case Journey for exiting cannabis dispensary operations located at 4030 Farm Supply Drive. And I believe Westbrook, you have an introduction for this.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lopez. Senior Planner James Michael is going to give the report on this item.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mike.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you very much. So just to give you some background, as the City Council is aware, the city approved a conditional use permit and a development agreement between the city and Cases Journey Incorporated in January of 2018. And so that would allow for the applicant to operate for a 3-year period as the retail dispensary service for medicinal cannabis operation within the existing 4,000 square foot industrial zone building located at 4030 Farm Supply Drive. Prior to the end of the 3-year period, the applicant reached out to staff to discuss a proposal to amend the agreement, which would update the agreement to reflect the current operations of the business and set the terms for a longer term operation. And at its December 7th, 2020 meeting, staff presented the Planning Commission with this information and indicated the applicant is proposing an amendment and that would extend the terms of the agreement for a 10-year period. And the public benefit payment structure would also be updated to be more reflective of the current cannabis business market conditions. Upon staff informing the commission that the proposed amendment is very similar to the 10-year agreement the City Council approved back in October of 2020 for Patient Care First operation located at 1442 Angie Avenue. The Planning Commission recommended the City Council approve the amendment by a 4-0 vote. Having said that, staff supports the amendment as the applicant will still be required to pay above public benefit to the city that is based upon the revenue generated by the business. Approving the amendment will help maintain a positive fiscal balance for the city, as the amendment will promote the generation of additional sales tax revenues for the city over a 10-year period instead of the previous 3-year period. And the applicant is willing to work with the city to remain compliant with the conditions of approval for the operation. To date, the applicant has made the required public benefit payments for the existing development agreement in a timely manner. And so it is expected the applicant will continue to be in substantial compliance in the future with the terms and the conditions with the proposed amendment. Now, furthermore, the applicant has been operating at the current location since January 2018, and to date, the Planning Division staff has not received any complaints about the operation. Staff believes the existing conditions of approval imposed on the existing conditional use permit and the terms associated with the amendment for this development agreement would ensure the applicant's business operation will function in a manner so as not to be detrimental to the public health and safety for Ceres residents. The applicant is aware of staff's expectations and understands the approval of this amendment can be revoked if the operation is found to be not in compliance with these conditions. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, generally, you would at this point ask if the council had any questions
This
directly
is
of
exactly
staff.
what I was going to ask. Does the council have any questions on this matter?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
City Manager, what is done with the revenue from the development agreement with Case's Journey currently?
So the public benefit fee, there's really kind of three prongs. So public benefit fee is placed into the city's general fund. Additionally, any recreational sales of cannabis, they pay a sales tax. They also pay the Measure H sales tax as well. And all three of those sources go into the city's general fund.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wright?
Mr. Westbrook, the applicant they're required to have security at their business.
That's correct.
Okay, I brought this up previously when another cannabis place wanted to be allowed to have delivery of cannabis. And I'm still concerned that the business has security to protect their employees. But what about if we allow them to make home deliveries in series? There's no guard along. So all of a sudden somebody follows their delivery person into my neighborhood, one of your neighborhoods. You're out there with your kids or your grandkids, and somebody shows up with a gun and robs. There's no one there protecting that neighborhood, but yet the business has security to protect their employees. So I can't go along with allowing delivery because I don't think it's keeping our citizens safe, yet the business is safe. I also don't agree with 10-year agreement. I think a lot can happen in 10 years. I would prefer to stick with their current agreement is that 3 years.
The current agreement was 3 years, correct?
Right. And those are my comments.
I do know that Mr. Reynolds is on the Zoom this evening, so when we get to the public hearing, we'll let him respond to some of those.
Now, maybe this is a question that I could ask the chief of police in regards to what Ms. Reynolds is saying. Has there ever been a time where you have had an incident of a report of somebody being targeted for delivering marijuana to a resident in Ceres or maybe surrounding cities?
I am not aware of an incident of a robbery at a residence from one of our facilities, but there was a money bag grab at one of the banks on Mitchell Road a couple of years ago that was coming from a different dispensary outside of our city.
And that was more of the company transporting their money to the bank and they had a money grab. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure where he
Oh,
was
okay.
transporting the money, but yes, there was a money grab when he made the stop.
Yeah, I was just curious. The only reason I bring that up is just if Ms. Rhino is saying that she's concerned about that, if that is the case, I want to see if Mr. Chief has seen that happen. So,
But even
yes.
if it hasn't happened yet,
Mhm.
I don't want to be on a council that says we don't care about our citizens because they're not going to have the same security that the cannabis business is having for their own employees. That's what bothers me. And it hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I don't want it to happen to me when I'm out with my grandkids, when any of you are out in your neighborhood, or somebody's grandma is out in their neighborhood, pruning their tree or whatever. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it isn't going to. And again, if they have to have security for their employees, why aren't our citizens just as important? That's the point I'm trying to make.
I understand, Mr. Rhino, and this is not obviously me, trying to argue with you or anything, but if there were to be somebody delivering a pizza in the past, there's been robberies of people delivering food. So I would hope that that does not happen to our citizens. I feel that you have to give these businesses an opportunity to be involved in delivery, because that is a huge part, especially during these COVID times. Sometimes some businesses, and I'm not saying that their business is not open, but given the opportunity to be able to deliver your product is key in my personal opinion. But I do understand where you're coming from. That's the last thing that we need is any of our citizens getting robbed or any of that sort.
And Mr. Mayor, I would just like to ask, is there any restrictions on what they can and cannot deliver?
Chetan?
It's just the products that they sell inside the store.
But is
So-
there a maximum amount that they could carry in their car or?
Yes.
That's probably a question for Mr. Reynolds. So we tailored this agreement for Case's Journey to be similar to Patient Care First. Patient Care First really wanted the delivery. Mike may say that's not part of his business plan and may not want it. So
Okay.
if we get to Mr. Reynolds, we can ask him that question directly.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as the 10-year, now we spoke before, across the board, everybody has the same kind of deal, right? 10 years, PCF has
So
the same deal.
there's two dispensaries in town. Patient Care First, is Mr. Michaels referenced. Their agreement was approved in October of 2020
Okay.
for a period of 10 years. Mike Reynolds has another manufacturing facility that was approved, their development agreement in April of 2020 for a 5-year term.
Okay.
And just to go back to Patient Care, they were pushing for 10 years because they wanted to make modifications to their building, and they felt that it would be more economically feasible if they were able to be assured of a 10-year contract,
You're
correct?
absolutely correct. That is correct.
Okay. So today we only have Mike Reynolds with us today, correct?
I believe that Mike is on the line. I believe we promoted him
I would like to hear his take on that part of it. Say it again. We're gonna say that one more time?
Need to open.
Okay, then let's go ahead and open the public hearing for item number 11.
Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I don't have a place to raise my hand, so I'm just kind of open there. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, a couple of things. One, I think when I look at the delivery piece, I look at the people that can't get their medicines. Yeah, there are a lot of people that buy it recreationally, but there are also a lot of people that don't have access to driving, that don't have access to be able to come to a store. And the whole idea around delivery was compassionate care and being able to deliver people that can't drive and come in. People that don't have a license or that can't walk or that just can't come in. So that's my first piece to why I think delivery is important. Number two, there definitely is, I think for us should be a working relationship between us and the city. And I understand, Ms. Rhino, your comments and your concerns, but we do have delivery already approved in our city, and there are deliveries coming out from outside of our city into our city. And I think from a tax revenue perspective, outside the compassionate care piece where people can't come in, it's also, I think, a disservice to ban us. But then we have outside agencies and already one dispensary that's already coming in to deliver. And from a safety perspective, that's always definitely a top priority. There are limitations on, Mr. Condit, on how much you can take and how much you take at a time. So it's a very small amount. It's not like you're driving around an ice cream truck full of cannabis and cash. It's a very small amount. Typically, our deliveries are 1 to 2 deliveries at a time and then back. To Mr. Lopez's point, most pizza deliveries carry more cash than we do. So from a robbery perspective, it's not the high volume. And it's really not, Ceres isn't this massive town where we have a ton of volume and a ton of driving. A lot of people are coming to us, but there are those that don't. And, whether you guys believe in the medicinal side or not, there are people that do need this type of product and utilize it as such that don't have means of transportation. And with COVID, you've definitely seen a spike in people that don't want to be out and that are afraid. And so considering that piece and the fact that we already have it legal in our city, I just think it'd be a unfair disadvantage to us to not. But, those are some of the things, and happy to answer any other questions that you guys have. When it comes to the length of the DA, yeah, PCF definitely asked for the long 10 years. You know, I would be fine with a 3 or 5. 5 makes me feel more comfortable, but in all honesty, with the new change in the Senate and the new president, just kind of everything that's happening in the US, and you look at where cannabis is going, I can't imagine in 5 years that it's not federally legal. And so I am open to that. I actually think it kind of gives me an advantage to where things are at. You know, I've always been about giving back to my hometown and helping out where we can. So really up to you guys. I'm up to both. 10 for me is fine. Like if that's too long for you guys, I'm completely fine with that. 5 makes me feel more comfortable just based on timing and how things are gonna, you know, what things look like in the next 4 years. That gives us one more election and we'll have a little bit more understanding of where the US is going. But in all honesty, from what I'm hearing from the lobbyists that we work with, is between the next 12 and 36 months, cannabis will look completely different in the US than it does today. So I am open to all those and happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And, you know, I just want to say from the beginning, I do appreciate that the city took a chance in providing this opportunity for me to be home and not to have to move. I hope over the last 3 years that we've demonstrated that it isn't a public safety. Yeah, like there's still some things to feel more comfortable about, but I think we've done a good job representing what a relationship with a cannabis company and a city could look like, considering the changes that are happening around the world. So I do appreciate how proactive the city has been. And I think really there's only one council member on there actually today. So actually, I think I'm just thanking Linda, as everybody else is newly elected or been part of series in some capacity. So, you know, hopefully you feel like we've represented city in a positive light in an uncomfortable situation where things are changing. Trust me, by all means, if I could have a healthy son and be a high school teacher, I would do that all day, but that's not the cards I was dealt, and which is what led me to cannabis. So I hope that we've done the city justice in making sure we've been a good operator and continue to, as we continue to hopefully expand our agreement.
Thank you, Mike, for those kind words. Is there anything else that we would like to talk about as far as item on number 11?
Mayor,
Yes,
have
ma'am.
some hands raised.
We have somebody else? Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Let's go ahead and have this other person speak. Who is it?
Next person with their hand raised is Lee Brandt. Mr. Brandt, I'll unmute your mic.
Hello, Mr. Grant.
Yeah, thank you. I tend to agree with Councilmember Rhino as far as, you know, it only takes one robbery to happen. I would really be concerned on the security of the deliveries. I mean, you know, if, you know, it comes down to it, you know, a person gets a delivery once, you know, and then a week later they get another delivery, and then a week later they get another delivery. There's a pattern there. And that means the bad guy, which obviously he could be watching. And it doesn't take much. I mean, he may not want, he may be satisfied at robbing somebody of a half an ounce of cannabis or a few dollars. It only takes one. And I understand, you know, I mean, we have, what do we have, 13 schools around town? You know, that's just, you know, my opinion is I totally agree with Councilmember Rhino that some type of security, you know, maybe an armed guard, maybe that's the person who has to deliver. You know, there's something that, you know, you can't just do willy-nilly out there. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much.
Next person is John Warren. Mr. Warren, I'll unmute your mic.
Thank you. I also agree with Councilman Rhino. I believe cannabis is a different product than a package of spatulas or some clothing that Amazon Prime delivers to your doorstep. I don't know how many members here or people listening in have the application Ring, where you can see what's going on in your neighborhood, possibly your driveway. But there's also a part of that that has a citizen alert that notifies community members about what's going on. And most recently, I have noticed a big uptick in the number of people that are roaming around our streets at night, checking car doors, walking into people's driveways, going into their driveways and going into their backyards at all hours of the day, stealing shoes off of the porch. There is a increase in the type of citizens that we don't desire in our community. And cannabis is a different product. So I have to agree with Ms. Reiner that security is an important thing with that particular product. And also, I think 3 years, 5 years, at least a minimum 5 years would be an ideal contract length. 10 might be too long. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else?
Yes, Mayor. Next person is Rosalinda Vieira. I will unmute your mic.
Hello. I just wanted to chime in. I've known when we originally had the cannabis discussion many years ago, I also had brought up an incident. I live 3 houses away from a school and directly across a park where several years ago there was a stabbing and a shooting. I wanted to bring up because a few years ago I did have a drug deal go wrong and someone was shot in front of my house. This is something I remember when I first moved in and purchased my house. It happened. And I own the house, so it's not like I can just, give my notice and move somewhere else. So my concern again would be just the safety and security because of us citizens. I don't personally use it. I do have family members who need to, but I do think it's important that we do maintain the security for the citizens as well, because this guy was running down the street with a gun after a drug deal gone bad, and he was shot in front of my house. And so I just want to bring that reminder back to the city council. It's been about 5 years since this happened, but I do want to make sure that you guys are reminded that we do have this that still happens in series. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? One more?
Osgood, I will unmute your mic.
Yes, I just want everybody to know, we can't protect everybody from every situation. If we gave another business a 10-year contract, we must, even Mrs. Rhino, equally apply the law to all in series. Give the man his 10 years. Thank you.
Mr. Osgood, I did not agree with the last one that
regardless,
received that. I'm just telling you that when you say I need to be equal, I am being equal.
Regardless of if you agreed with it or not, ma'am, the city has made the precedent and allowed another business to have the 10 years. It's time to move on. We have an adequate police department that can protect your neighborhood. If they cannot, as a councilwoman, you need to address the chief of police about that. We must be equal in our contracts with everyone. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else?
No, Mayor.
Okay.
So then, Mayor
anything-
Lopez, you want to close the public hearing?
For this matter, we can close the public hearing and we can go ahead and motion to pass this.
I have some information.
Sorry, what was that?
I have some information,
Okay,
more
go
just
ahead.
information as opposed to a view or an opinion.
Okay. go
I
ahead.
did some research on this, and it is clearly legal in the state of California to deliver cannabis from local cannabis dispensaries. There, as to I could find, there are no cities that have amended their codes or anything related, just singling out delivery. And again, I could find almost nobody, I didn't find any potential problems with robberies or anything like that related to the delivery of cannabis. So that's just information I think we all need to hear.
Councilmember. Okay, with that, does anybody else have anything else to say?
Mr. Mayor.
Sir.
So I have a little history dealing with these issues. I dealt with them when I served on the Planning Commission in April of 2017 when we dealt with the first case manufacturing located in Ceres. And the Planning Commission back then decided that this money would be best spent for public safety. And I still believe that as a council person, that this money should go directly to police and fire and basically have the chief's discretion on how best to use this money. So I would like to move that we establish a public benefit fund that both Chief Wise and Chief Collins and City Manager Westbrook and our Finance Director, Ms. Diaz, are in charge of this fund, and at the discretion of the police and fire chiefs on best how to fill our budget shortfalls in both departments.
Thank you. Councilmember Rhino.
Mr. Westbrook, currently, what percentage of our general fund goes to police and fire?
Around 73, 74%.
Okay. So then, Vice Mayor, you want to earmark this specifically for police and fire, correct?
Yes.
And would that money then be for salary? Would that money then say the amount that went into this public benefit, whatever you're going to call it,
Fund.
Yes. Is 500,000. So then would you take 500,000 out of what the current budget is, or you're going to give them an additional 500,000 on top of the 73% of our general fund?
And I'll clarify my position. I believe, as I've always believed, this money should not go into the general fund. It should be in a separate account that only funds the police and fire department, and the police chief and the fire chief decide how to best spend the money, whether they feel it's salaries or equipment or any other item in their departments. And as it goes for the 73%, we'll have that discussion at our budget meeting, but I think their funding in the general fund should stay the same, and I think they should get this. This is, like Mr. Warren said, this isn't a grocery store, this isn't a tire shop, this is a marijuana business. Our police department has busted a lot of illegal grows here in Ceres. Illegal grows, we have 2 dispensaries. Are we going to make a decision to go after the black market? Or are we going to make a decision to put this money in the general fund and let it pad our general fund?
So the city council makes the decision on the city budget, but in this case, you don't want the city council to make that decision. You're going to give that to the police chief and the fire chief to decide what to do with that money?
I believe they will make the best decision because the council has shown that they want it to go in the general fund. I think this is special money because it's in a development agreement. This is a special agreement. Do we have any other businesses in the city that are under development agreements besides marijuana businesses, Tom?
No, specifically they're related to cannabis. The development agreements we've had in the past are generally more for a land use based type thing, not necessarily a cannabis related business.
Yeah.
If I could though, I think one important note to kind of point out for you to discuss and consider is the voters approved the Measure H sales tax in 2007. 100% of Measure H goes to police and fire. 100% of the decisions about how that money is going to be spent is made by the police chief and the fire chief. So those revenues that come in on an annual basis, that half-cent sales tax goes 100% to both of those departments.
And in addition, so Cooper, could you please elaborate on, you're specifically only asking for the monthly?
Only the development agreement, not the sales tax that is also on top of this development agreement. So it's really 1/3 of the piece, and I know Measure H also goes to fund our police and fire departments, but we can all be honest up here that there is budget shortfalls in both of our public safety departments. And this additional money will help make them solvent. I truly believe that.
There are budget deficits in probably all of our departments.
Yes, there are.
And,
Well, we have a
and,
$1.7 million deficit in
and
this building.
I don't see how giving this money to police and fire is fair to the rest of the city. I'm sure that there are other departments that have some kind of interaction with the cannabis, okay? There's finance department that has to take the money in, so they don't get any part of that. The city manager has to deal with them and their, whatever their questions are, but he doesn't get any portion of that in his budget.
Is he a salaried employee?
I'm talking about his budget, his city manager budget. Every department in the city has a budget. Okay,
What's the most important department to you, Councilmember Rhino?
I think that's a hard question to answer. Police and fire is always important, but then you look at Parks Department,
Very important.
which we get a lot of complaints about how that looks. We get a lot of complaints about code enforcement. So now you're going to take,
Well, you know what, Councilwoman, if I could cut you off real quick, that brings up an excellent point about the Public Benefit Fund. It's actually where I got the idea. The city of Riverbank has a public benefit fund that they've been using for the past 3 years for their marijuana businesses. They've been successful in adding 3 sheriff deputies to their city, 2 code enforcement officers, and they're currently building 1 park with the revenue from the marijuana dispensaries that they have.
so that isn't just strictly going to police and fire.
Well,
Because
they chose
but the
parks.
way you want to do it is police and fire.
Well, yeah,
and
I'm a
then you
little
ju- and then
different
you
than the
just said
city of
And then
Riverbank.
you just said the park. So maybe if you want to do something with the budget, that's a good discussion when we do our budget workshop.
Well, this is the perfect opportunity to establish this fund, to earmark the development agreement money for
really-
these 2 departments. The city of Riverbank did it different. They did code enforcement, their contract with the sheriff's office, and parks for their community. I think we should focus on our police department and our fire department.
And I think that since the majority of this council is new, you haven't been through one budget process, that maybe we all need to sit through a budget workshop and see exactly how it works before we start earmarking money for certain departments or certain accounts.
Well,
But
I
I bet
think,
you haven't even sat through I mean, you may have read about it and you know what our deficits are, but I really don't think that you're familiar enough with the city budget. And I understand where you're coming from, I really do. But again, it seems to me that's a decision that should be made through the budgetary discussions that we're going to be having probably in March or April.
well, Councilwoman, with all due respect, I was elected just like you to make tough decisions while I'm up here. I believe this money would be best used for the police and fire department. That's why I made the motion to establish the public benefit fund that both chiefs, our finance director and our city manager have control over, at which the funding would go to both fire and police. So that's why I made the motion.
I have a question for the city attorney. If we're discussing the introduction of the ordinance that specifies modifying their current agreement, can we also tack on what he's requesting?
You could consider it in the context of it's where the monthly fee would be going potentially.
Thank
And
you.
we'd bring that, and since it's the first, you could do that.
Thank you.
I have a few comments also as to what you just addressed, Councilwoman Rhino. We're here to talk about the length of the agreement with Case and the specifics of it. I think if that was brought to it, put on the agenda at a later time, maybe we could discuss it then. We're not here right now to talk about this fund that you would like to create. And now speaking to that fund, that would make some sense if our police department had a huge amount of calls to service to our local cannabis dispensaries. In the grand scheme of things, they have very little to almost no calls for service at our cannabis stores. So providing that fee, and remember, and everybody knows, I'm currently employed as a member of the public safety. Everybody knows that. I'm not trying to hide that. We don't have any calls for service, basically, at our cannabis stores. So money directly to protect our cannabis stores, that's not what it would be for. That's not what your fund that you're talking about would be used for. That may make sense, a lot of sense. We don't have that issue or problem.
I never mentioned that problem.
Well, I'm mentioning it now. We don't have that problem. And if we did, maybe that would make sense. Clearly, the voters decided our public safety in series needed some support and passed Measure 8. Clearly, that was passed. Great. A lot of money and revenue goes towards our public safety.
Councilmember Silvera, you do bring up a good point that if we should, as it stands, pass this.
I'm not finished.
I'm sorry about that, sir. Go ahead.
So like I said, Measure H was voted by the community to provide resources for public safety. And it was a great idea and a great decision.
What was the year on that?
2017. Also, in the 2 council meetings that we've had here so far as a new council, we've had numerous discussions on matters that aren't on the agenda and made changes to things that aren't on the agenda that we probably shouldn't be discussing. Remember, this is my opinion. I think we need to do, as a newer council, a better job of sticking to the agenda. And if we would like things on the agenda, we should ask for them to be put on the agenda and then have an open discussion about that, not create open discussions as we go. That's my opinion. That's why we have an agenda. We did it in December. Now here we're doing it again. That gives everybody the ability to do the same research or whatever they want to do to an item before we go talk about it on a whim. We need to stick to the agenda and talk and vote on things that are on the agenda. Remember, if we were to create a fund just for public safety, when our calls for service are at the businesses that you think the money should come from are almost zero, how does that make sense for the community? Now, our publics, and I'm working public safety every day, I get it. And I ran on a platform that public safety is our #1 responsibility, and it is. We have almost 75% of our general fund goes to public safety. Measure H goes to public safety. We just can't keep saying all the money should go to one spot. We're going to have budget decisions and conversations, just like Linda said, that are going to be very extensive. And we're going to have to figure out how to get more money for whoever we think needs it, or move money around, or make the pie have more pieces. But right now, we're deciding on whether we should make this a 10-year agreement with the owner of the business would be okay with 5. That's really what we're here to decide. And I think we need to stick to that. Very important that we do that. It's very important we give the community the opportunity to think about, discuss, and research items on the agenda before we talk about them in a meeting. That's all I have.
City Attorney, would this come back to the City Council if it did pass the Public Benefit Fund?
Well, and we're bringing one item back because upon reflection, we think it did need to be separated out. In this case, since this is an ordinance and this is the first reading, you could potentially, in Article 4 regarding the public benefit, add something about a designated fund for public safety. But it would be, and I apologize if I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about just in the context of this money and not a citywide fund to be discussed. So that being the caveat, but you could, because then at the next meeting, there would be a second reading and people would have an additional opportunity to comment on whether earmarking.
Okay.
creating
I just
funds-
want to make sure people would be able to research the topic.
Yes.
My point, Tom, is there's a difference between can do and should do. We can do it, but should we do it? Or should we let the community have their time to do their research and talk about it with an educated opinion that they didn't come up with in 2 minutes while they were waiting for their hand to be raised on Zoom?
I agree with
Imperative that we do
Councilmember Silvera. It should be on the agenda. We should have a discussion about it, not pulling it into a discussion that we thought we were going to have strictly on a development agreement and specifically the number of years versus what their monthly payment was going to be.
Well, I believe what the city attorney said, the fund is in this agreement, the public benefit funds, the revenue part of the agreement, establishing where that goes in the city, I think is an important part of the agreement. And that's why I bring it up every time, because where that money goes is important. Now, I have a few statistics to read here. We have one resident for 0.8 officers in our city. The national average is supposed to be 2 officers for one resident. The California average is 1 resident for every 1 officer. Now, we have 24 patrol officers. We have 9 sergeants budgeted. And our general plan goals, we're supposed to increase our officers by 20 to meet our current residents. That's not even talking about the growth, the future housing developments that could happen in the city. So to say that this is, we don't want to give this money to the police and fire department because they don't get calls for service or this or that, I think that's a real slap in the face to the voters who put us here. When I talk to people, their number one concern is public safety. They want more officers on the street. They want 4 firefighters in a fire truck. They want that. They're asking that for us. And I think this is an opportunity for us to deliver on that and not wait, not kick the can down the road to June or July when we pass the budget, but now. Let's do it now.
Okay, well, we'll be having a budget meeting in March or April, budget workshop.
I was talking about
And
passing the budget.
Okay, but we're going to have discussion, which is what we should be doing, is discussing it. And I appreciate all of your information that you had time to get because you knew that you were going to put this on the agenda. You were going to discuss it.
I talk about it every
had that
time.
information, and maybe the mayor was aware of it, but the other 2 were not. And so again, I thank you for your information because you knew what you were going to be talking about.
I
so
talk about this
can I
every
please interject?
time there has been a marijuana discussion before me. When I sat on the planning commission, I made this point clear to you when I was a planning commissioner. I called you about this issue, as I did all the other council members. I truly believe this money should go to police and fire. I don't see what's so bad about that. And I don't see a problem with us having a discussion about that. If you don't think it should go to the police and fire department and you think it should go to the general fund, stand by that, Councilwoman.
I think it needs to be on the agenda and we can talk about it. Again, you've wrapped it into the discussion on ordinance, which I read the staff report, I read the DA, and that's exactly what I thought we were talking about tonight.
I thought we were talking about the whole development agreement because that's what
says
the
right here.
item says.
That's right here what we're talking about.
Public hearing to consider second amended development agreement. To me, that means the whole development agreement. Now, maybe I'm reading that wrong. I don't know. I went to Modesto High. I didn't go to Ceres High, so maybe I'm a little off base.
Well, and I didn't go to Ceres High either, so.
I think that now can I interject now? Thank you guys very much. I think everybody has strong points. If we're going to wait, then that should go across the board where it talks about delivery, the 3 years, the whole 9 yards. We should talk about that at a later date. let's go ahead and pass this so that Mike Reynolds can go to sleep tonight, feeling comfortable that the city is behind him.
You pass, somebody has to make a motion. for
Yes,
something.
well, let me make the
I made a
motion.
motion.
I'll second that motion
What was the
Excuse-
motion?
to keep it the way it is now and just with no alterations.
Well, Mayor, I made a motion to establish the public benefit fund with this ordinance. And that would bring the public benefit back
But,
another meeting, correct, City Attorney?
It would be in addition
so
to,
let's, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
it would be in addition to Article 4, Section 4.2. I guess we could make that D.
Okay, so his motion is saying that we're going to postpone.
We're going to include the fund. in
I would
this
rather
vote.
postpone it. I mean, that's just my personal take. I think that
Well,
we'll
we
get
have,
to it.
he has a motion. We have to see if someone seconds it.
Okay, go ahead and second it. Whoever wants to second that. I'll second that.
You're going to second approving,
No, I'm not going to approve it. I'm just saying that,
you can't second it.
well, then
He doesn't have to vote for it.
No.
no.
Yeah, you can vote no.
Well, I mean, I do want it to continue down the line. So if we say no, will it still continue down the line
If
in
you
the
don't,
future?
it
I'm-
dies.
Currently, we would,
Have another,
if that's what you want currently, we would not need to vote. On this motion, make a new motion to approve it as written. This is the 10-year.
Okay.
Yeah. What Councilman Quanah would like to address.
Okay, that's the direction I'm going.
Put it on the agenda.
but you wouldn't vote second it if you know you're going to.
And let's not waste anybody's time. Be no second. So I would like to motion that we pass number 11 as the contract is, no changes. I get a second. Thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Can I ask for clarification? You say with no changes, but there are changes in, correct? It's for 10 years or
Oh, the way it was brought to our attention, the way it was
As presented, I.
as presented.
as
As
presented
presented.
with the 10 years and the,
Yeah,
oh,
yes, as presented.
right. Sorry.
It's okay. Get a roll call.
I didn't catch that. Who seconded?
Yeah, Silvera seconded.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rhino,
No,
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit,
No.
and Mayor Lopez.
No.
We're at 2-2.
I think he said no.
I said no. That was 3 no's. Yes, that was 3 no's.
I said no.
I'm the only one
He
that
said
said yes.
no. Condit said no.
Okay.
So I think there's some confusion. I voted no because I didn't want the 10-year frame, and I didn't want home delivery. But I think the mayor, I don't want to tell him how
You
he
know what?
voted.
No, you're absolutely right. That is all my fault. I think I got confused when you said no because of the discussion that we had.
Right,
I want to say yes to pass the motion.
right.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's my apologies. So let's get a recount on that, please.
Yes. Councilmember Rhino,
No,
Councilmember Silvera, Vice Mayor Condit,
No.
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes.
oh,
But either way, we're in a position where we're not going to pass this. Can we have a further discussion, or is that's it? It's
So you
dead?
could have further discussions or motions.
Okay, so here's my motion. My motion is that we
Hold on. Don't,
let's make a discussion. Let's make a discussion. So as it is presented, with the exception of discussion down the line of Vice Mayor's discussion as far as that, what we proposing, what was the name of that?
Public benefit fund.
The possibility of that being addressed on another agenda meeting. That, I'm saying we can address it then, but as it stands now, can we move forward? Is what I'm saying. So it's not saying that we won't discuss it down the line. It's not going to die there, correct?
remember, we're talking about the 10-year agreement.
So that's all we're talking about. Yes.
Councilman Member Rhino, would you be inclined to support, like Mr. Reynolds said, 5 years?
No, it's not, I
understand.
can do
I
the
just thought I'd
5,
ask.
no,
Just the
I can do
delivery?
the 5 years, but I still cannot vote to have home delivery because heaven forbid it happens. I want to be able to say that I didn't vote for it. Somebody gets robbed.
I think the only solution here, in my opinion, is moving to table this motion till we have a full 5-member sitting city council.
Especially if this is going nowhere.
Um,
And my apologies to Case Journeys for this. But I mean, if this is where we stand, then I guess that's gonna be the,
I think the city manager.
go ahead.
Tom, just a point of clarification. I believe that the original development agreement expires in early February of 2021. What do we need to do procedurally to ensure that we don't lose continued operations at Case's Journey?
We extend the current one.
We could extend the current agreement, you know, theoretically for an indefinite period or a set period, depending on when you think you might have the full
When
council.
the decision's made.
I mean, assumably like 180 days from today's date. I mean, is that something that could work? Because I don't want Mike's development agreement to terminate while we wait for a
Right,
full
can
council.
we just continue the current agreement until we make a decision on a new agreement?
We need to
Does it need to be
do a date
specific in
certain,
time?
just so we don't have to renotice again and all of that. So you could set that out for some period and then bring back a temporary agreement that would have to be at the next meeting. Or
Well, could we do that now? A temporary agreement where we just,
And it say till whatever, May 1st or
we hold,
But that would be the current price, correct?
right.
Yeah, with
Well,
everything the
that's,
same.
that would be something to talk about. You keep it, everything the same except extend the time or change the fee.
Well, I think he's paying 20,000 now, isn't he?
yeah.
So that wouldn't
Correct.
change. The amount that he's paying now wouldn't change.
I'm just saying if that's something you can consider.
I just would urge the council.
Can I amend my motion, please?
Yes?
The motion
Well,
originally
ask the
was.
city clerk if you can.
I can, right? Yeah. My motion originally, if you remember, was to table this until we have a full council. I'd like to amend that to table it till we have a full council using the existing agreement with the time extended to April 1st at the existing agreement. At that point, time we'll have a new council, we'll have enough time to do the research. And so will the new person. And if and when we decide before April 1st, we can change it when we make that decision.
Can we do that, Ernie?
I'm looking at our calendar here real quick. You'd say April 12th, our first regular meeting.
All right.
Amended that
second.
motion to April 12th.
I second it.
Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit,
No,
and Mayor Lopez.
Yes,
Motion passes 3-1.
thank you. That was a long one. Let's go ahead and go to number 12. The public hearing to consider approving a proposal for a text amendment of the Series Municipal Code that prohibits both the outdoor cultivation of cannabis and overnight camping in various zoning districts. Michaels.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So to give you some additional background on this, over the course of the past 2 years, the city has been working towards updating the Series Municipal Code, making adjustments to multiple code sections to reflect compliance with state law, as well as creating new standards that work towards achieving applicable goals and policies listed in the Series General Plan. These updates to the Muni Code became effective in June of 2020. Since then, the City Council became aware of 2 additional issues involving the outdoor cultivation of cannabis and overnight camping and their impact that they've had on the city as of late. And so the City Council directed staff to work on 2 code amendments to create ordinances that prohibit the outdoor cultivation of cannabis and overnight camping in Ceres. In regards to prohibiting outdoor cultivation of cannabis, there's some additional background I'd like to provide. You're probably aware the City Council approved a text amendment to the Community Code back in October of 2017 that would allow the citywide land use regulation of cannabis businesses on a case-by-case basis. Since that time, the council has approved a total of 4 cannabis-based businesses, a testing facility, a manufacturing facility, and 2 retail dispensary facilities. As part of the city's 2020 Community Code update, the city adopted an ordinance to further regulate potential cannabis operations, which also included a section specifically devoted to prohibiting the outdoor cultivation of cannabis. Well, following the adoption of the 2020 update, it was then noted by staff and council that additional language was needed to further clarify that outdoor cultivation of cannabis would not be permitted on any properties under the city's jurisdictional authority. And so as a result, staff was directed to bring back an amendment to the ordinance that would reflect that kind of language. That language, you could view that in ordinance proposal 2021-1063 of the staff report. In regards to overnight camping, the council considered some comments that were made at their October 26th meeting last year. During citizens communications, there were some members of the public that discussed some concerns of areas throughout Ceres, specifically more towards commercial zone properties being utilized for overnight camping purposes. So it was noted that the city did not currently have an ordinance in place that regulates overnight camping except for the city's parks. So after considering those comments, council directed staff to create an ordinance that would prohibit overnight camping in all commercial and industrial related zone properties. The proposed text amendment is listed under ordinance 2021-1064 of the staff report. Now the City Planning Commission considered both of these text amendments at their November 16th, 2020 meeting. Upon completion of the presentation, the commission had no questions on the text amendments. With no further discussion taking place, they approved both text amendments as proposed with no modifications by a 4-0-1 vote. Now prior to tonight's meeting, there was a public comment received today regarding section E, which is the enforcement section of the ordinance. They're recommending a different time frame be given for code compliance instead of the time frame listed. Staff is open to that. You know, if the council decides that the recommended enforcement, I believe staff had recommended 5 days for code compliance, but if they recommend something different, you know, staff is open to that. And so that concludes my presentation.
What did they recommend, Mr. Michaels?
Either at 8 hours of notice or but no more than 24 hours of notice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing that we wanted to mention did have some correspondence regarding the time section, James. I don't know which one it is, but there was a prohibition between midnight to 5 a.m. Staff is recommending that we just delete the time frame so that it could be at any time.
Did we have any other public correspondence on this item?
I believe each council member received all the correspondence directly to your email boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any public comment?
Well, you have to open that.
Is there anything else we want to discuss before I open up the hearing?
I have a couple things.
Councilmember?
Under the prohibition of overnight camping ordinance, it spells out specifically commercial and industrial. What about camping in residential neighborhood?
There's already provisions in the municipal code to allow somebody who, a guest, so a brother or sister that comes from out of the area or out of town can come and park on the street in front of a residential home.
Yeah, I understand that. I think they have to get a permit or something from planning. what about the people who, because they don't want to be seen on Hatch Road by Wendy's, now they're going into residential neighborhoods and they're parking on a city street and they're camping. So that's covered under another section that they can't do that, or that needs to be covered under overnight camping, section 1828-120.
I believe, James, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the section really relates to somebody that's visiting a person that lives in the household. So you wouldn't necessarily have somebody just parking on a street that shouldn't be there, not visiting someone.
That's correct.
I don't think I'm making myself clear. When we have section 1828-120, overnight camping in commercial and industrial related zone properties. Why does that not include residential? And by that, I mean, it excludes the people who have either gotten a permit, if there's a permit required from planning, or they have the permission of the homeowner that, you know, they are visiting for a couple of days. And I'm talking about, you know, like Mr. Warren's person up in the Wendy's parking lot. He's decided now he's, you know, become too popular with the police department. So he's going to move off and start parking in residential areas. If we don't have that spelled out, can they still be moved along? That's my question, because I know that I know I've seen that in other cities where they aren't just choosing commercial industrial, they're also going into residential areas and parking and camping.
Chief would be able to move somebody along in that circumstance?
We can surely ask. As it pertains to the municipal code, I don't know if there's a specific municipal code that would give us the proper enforcement action. But
So
I
should
can
we-
look into that and provide you with an answer.
Should we include that in overnight camping? And shouldn't it be commercial, industrial, and residential?
Certainly can be. I think that hopefully our code provision is strong enough so if there was a circumstance that a family member came from out of the area visiting a residence, that they would just get the permits. We haven't had any such requests of that type. I think only one or two have happened since we've updated that code.
Well,
Why-
I think that it needs to be addressed. And again, you can say with the exception of those folks who have gotten the permit or they have the permission of the resident that they're parked in
The
front of.
adjacent property owner.
Then my next question is on camp facilities on the next page. It says include but are not limited to tents, huts, temporary shelters, trailers, and vehicles. Shouldn't that also include recreational vehicle? Because the Class A or a Class C is different than a trailer.
We can certainly add recreational vehicle to that definition.
Okay, and then I was going to ask the question about 12 to 5, but you took care of that. And then under enforcement, 2, staff was recommending the written cease and desist notice. Then someone had recommended, according to Mr. Michaels, 8 hours or 24 hours. I don't understand why we can't just go cite them and then they have to move on. Why do we have to give them 8 hours? We have to give them 24 hours. Is that some kind of a law?
I'm not familiar with any law. I think that we can craft this however we desire. We did work with our legal team at Churchwell White to come up with the ordinance. So what you're seeing here has passed at least through the city attorney's office.
We can make
Well,
it stricter.
I definitely don't agree with what's written that they have 5 days. And I think even 8 hours, if they're camping and it's unsightly, I think 8 hours is even too much. I think that this is going to be code enforcement that would go out, or would it be police?
It most likely it'd be either or.
Okay, so I would prefer that if somebody is going out there on a complaint and they're obviously camping, that they need to be moved right along. They shouldn't be allowed to be there 8 hours or 24 hours. Those are my only comments.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anybody else?
And I just have one comment. We had talked about this on the planning commission, and that I agree 5 days is not necessary. A few hours we decided on a few hours when we talked about this, I believe, when I was on the commission, because it gives them at least a little bit of a time to figure out what their next plan is, as opposed to just kick them down the road and they literally go do the same thing again. A short amount of time or a few hours gives them the ability to, okay, set something up. Where am I going to go legally? Instead of just, okay, you boot them out of XYZ street, you leave, they go around the corner and they do the exact same thing without having the ability to say, okay, call family, kind of come stay with you, whatever.
But would you,
That's, I believe that's why most cities have a time frame set.
would you give
attached
them
to it.
8 hours though?
I think 8 hours is reasonable in my opinion. If I was in that situation, it may take a while to get a hold of somebody to figure out where I'm going to go next.
Anybody else?
Yeah, do we have a 3 infractions? Was that mentioned in this?
Say again, Councilman Condit.
Mr. Warren, in his email, he mentions that we're allowing 3 infractions per person.
Yeah, I think what, at least if I heard what Council Member Rhino suggested is that upon a period of time frame, they would either be cited or moved on. So there wouldn't necessarily be an infraction process. It would be more of a citation process.
If you gave him, let's say you agree to 2 hours, and that happened 3 times, then it would become a misdemeanor. That's what that.
And that's legally, we have to do it 3 times.
Well, that's what we have.
That's what we have written.
It's a progressive.
And Tom, is that the same place or is that 3 citations to that person? So if they do the same thing on the next block and they get another citation, is that 2 or is that still 1 because they've changed locations?
It's to the person, so it'd be.
It's the person, so they get 3 and then it's a misdemeanor no matter where in the city they are. Okay, thank you.
I would like to see it drop down to 2. I don't know if any other council members feel the same.
So just going back to what Mr. Rhino said, I mean, if you have somebody who's stalled over, and they have, I think I agree with Silvera, they need a little bit of equity time, but at the same time, if there's people that are just abusing the system, and they're just camping there, I think that, I don't know about the 5 days, but the 8 hours should be plenty of time. And the citations, I mean, if this person's being a nuisance, I mean, you can easily give this person 3 citations in a matter of 8 hours. Is that even possible? If this person is jumping around town, chief, and then he's being incompliant.
Well, if we decide upon an 8-hour time frame, within those 8 hours, stay in a 16-hour time frame, yes, we could issue 2 citations to the same person and continue along that progressive
I got you.
approach.
I think it has to be within just
In general.
overall.
Overall, right? So it doesn't matter about the 8 hours regardless. That's just more of where that person can't stay for 8 hours, but the citation is separate. That is correct. Okay.
Separate locations, you were?
No, I said that the 8 hours is different from the 3 citations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Is there any other discussions? All right, public comment. Let's open it up for public comment. Is anybody on Zoom that would like to speak?
Yes, Mayor. First person with their hand raised is John Osgood. Mr. Osgood, I'll unmute your mic.
Go ahead, John.
I'm kind of disappointed in the entire council. I'm a commercial truck driver. I sent you all an email. For the most part, everybody responds to my emails. Miss Rhino, you need to be chastised. I don't care what district I'm in. You will respond to the people of Ceres when they email you. Secondly, I sent an email to the clerk and to the entire council because of my occupation. I'm not always able to be on the Zoom calls. I am parked on the side of the road in a commercial vehicle to attend this meeting. Why? Because I have already proven tonight my emails aren't going to be read. I'm not going to be taken seriously. Is there a reason for that? I'm pissed.
I would respond to that. I read your emails, and I was talking to Tom. We mentioned somebody who has a commercial vehicle such as him. I mean, I don't see us citing that person, especially.
You have to put the exemption out there. You cannot make an ordinance and have exemptions and not exempt the commercial driver taking federally mandated FMCSA rest periods, which are maximum of 36 hours, minimum of 10. If we're going to bring business into Ceres, we have to allow truckers to park in the industrial and commercial areas. This is ridiculous. Not one of you mentioned the points I bring up in that email. The clerk didn't even address reading the email. Other people tonight have had their emails read. This is dereliction of duty. It's disrespectful and unacceptable. And the swear words will start coming out soon if you people don't give me the just due that I deserve. I'm a 44-year-old, 44-year resident of Ceres, a graduate of Ceres High, an Eagle Scout, and I am not going to put up with being ignored.
Thank you, John. Can we address that? Can we address that issue at the moment? I mean, what can we do for John when it comes to that? Because he ain't the only truck driver in town, obviously. I don't see us doing that to any truck drivers in town. My father's a truck driver, as we discussed before. But I mean,
But do you see a truck parked on the side of the road the same as a camper?
Linda, you don't get basic common sense. If you have exceptions to the rule, you must list every exception. You're asking for RVs to be added. You're asking for this and that to be added. Listen, let's be very clear. I have a California state law enforcement officer on that dais, do I not? We have vehicle registrations, not to mention you don't have an exception for the commercial drivers, that we pay multiple times higher registrations for the privilege of moving these heavy loads up and down the road. I'm a business owner in this county. This affects me being no exemption being given. So I've been affected several times tonight where the clerk disrespects me. Every one of you disrespect me by failing to mention, and Cooper, you're not immune to this, failing to mention the very things I discuss in that email. I discussed the private property rights. We pay taxes on these vehicles and these RVs and these trucks like they're personal property, just like our homes. And you have to take that into consideration. White Hill, Churchill, whatever, our city attorneys are the most inept people around. And any advice you get from them is ridiculous. They themselves should have brought this to your attention. You're going to penalize people for a lawful activity in their vehicle, parked in a lawful manner. You don't have the right to violate us in that fashion. I don't care if you're trying to, stop homelessness or what you're trying to do here. It's irresponsible, it's tyrannical, and it's disrespectful. You better get your act together.
John, thank you for
And
your
if none
comments.
of you think that I've been disrespected tonight, you're all fools.
Thank you, John, for your comments. Do we have anybody else who?
Yes, next person is John Warren. Mr. Warren, I'll unmute your mic.
Thank you, council. Again, on the matter of camping, rather than the terminology overnight camping, I just think the clarification might be camping in general, because there are people who do camp during the daytime hours as well as the nighttime hours. And so when a final draft is developed on this particular item, I think there should be some type of database that can be developed to track those individuals who possibly might be cited or warned in regards to this municipal code violation. So an officer contacting a person one day can check and see if he's been warned previously or if he's been cited previously by maybe another officer within our jurisdiction. I would also think that quite possibly on the citation notice or the cease and desist notice, that there be some verbiage that the individual not camp ever again within the city limits of Ceres. And that makes it very specific, and the person's been notified of the rules, and that further violations would result in it becoming a misdemeanor and further law enforcement enforcement. And also I made some suggestions in regards to, in the definition section, maybe those are unnecessary, but maybe that's something that staff could consider, because the first thing these folks do when they arrive in a parking area is round up all the shopping carts in the community that they can see, go over to the local dumpster and load it up with junk, and then truck it over and stack it up in front of their homestead. And this contributes to the unsightliness of the problem. So anyway, thank you for listening and giving consideration. I agree with Councilman Rhino. I don't think there should be a time frame. I assume that it was put in the ordinance to be reasonable, just like on the state highway rest areas, the 8-hour provision at those locations was put there so people would have a chance to rest. That's the purpose of rest areas. But within our city, people don't normally come here to rest. They're doing business. And my thought on this matter was where it pertained mainly to our shopping centers and parking lots, not necessarily looking at the commercial drivers that do come through our community. And maybe some consideration should be looked at in that regard to make sure that the areas that they can be in specifically are addressed, and there may be some type of exception made in regards to that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else?
No, Mayor.
Does anybody have any further discussion on this matter?
I have a comment now, and I think the first caller made a very reasonable point about commercial truck drivers and they're spending time in our community because the law says they have to go somewhere and they're here. I guess my question would be to James and both Toms, is there a way we could address that here? Or is that appropriate?
Yes, we could do that. Clearly that wasn't the intent of the ordinance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can make sure to add something that in the exception component that addresses that.
That will be done at a later time to
Well, we can
implement
do that.
Part of the
Well, what,
as part of the motion.
yeah, and then specific language will be brought back at the next.
Right back to make sure that we, okay, we understand the language. Okay.
So I see that as a potential addition or change. Also, striking 5 days and making 8 hours would be what I would like to include in a motion before I make one. Those are the two things that I would move to include in this at our next meeting when we address this again, written as we're asking now. That makes sense to you
It's
guys?
8 hours, but the 8 hours and the 5 days is already in there.
Get rid of 5 days.
Want to get rid of 5 days?
Yeah, and just give them 8 hours.
Just give them 8 hours.
I was thinking that if it's a night, they have time to,
Would they have
find
to
where
do
they're
it?
going to go.
With the exception if they're allowed by the resident and or have a permit.
Right. That's already in our, and like Tom said, that's in the municipal code that it's allowed in the residential areas of our town. I absolutely think he makes a great point about commercial truck drivers. Maybe we missed that. We could definitely write that in the language that our planning department would deem appropriate. That and the striking of 5 days and making it 8 hours, all the other stuff, I'm good with. Yeah.
And I would still like it to include residential, but the people who have permission from the city.
That's already in the municipal code, Linda.
I think we could add it here at the,
Just also?
the
Yeah, because
second,
that's talking about, those are the people that can park there. What I'm saying is, I don't want the way this is written, that somebody gets moved from industrial and goes over in parks and residential. I want it to be, I
I
guess,
get that.
more specific.
I guess what I'm saying is that's already in the municipal code, that wouldn't be allowed. They wouldn't be able to move in it because the municipal code, I believe when we addressed this last year, states that they can't camp unless they have permission.
So there's kind of two different things.
Okay.
I think that what Councilman Rhino is saying is that, you know, putting that provision so that people that are not supposed to be in the neighborhood, they're not visiting a relative, would be prohibited from being there. So you really want two things, really. You want to have that restriction so that somebody doesn't move off of a commercial or industrial property into a residential neighborhood. So I think it's appropriate to include it here too.
I think you'd simply add at that second full paragraph at the beginning, put non-permitted residential camping, comma, and camping on private property and commercial industry.
Okay, I'll move that we table this to our next meeting with a revision, striking 5 days, adding 8 hours.
I don't think we table it. I think we have to introduce the
Yeah,
ordinance.
you just introduce with those changes and we'll come back with the specific language.
Huh?
It
One more
does
time?
everything
It's
you
an
asked.
ordinance.
Yeah, make
Okay.
a motion with your changes.
Yeah, so essentially what we can do, Councilman Severa, is
got you.
we can incorporate those changes and then just bring it back under its
It'll
normal
be-
process.
It'll be the complete one that we'll actually
Why
approve.
don't you do it?
Adopt.
Why don't you do it and I'll listen?
Pardon me?
Why don't you do it and I'll listen?
You did it.
I've been
You were
talking the
just
whole time.
tabling and we don't want to table it. You're
Okay.
just,
want to table it.
you're introducing
I
the
see.
ordinance.
I move to approve this ordinance with the following changes, striking 5 days, including 8 hours written notice. Also including a provision for these that are moved from these commercial areas will not be able to camp in residential areas.
And the
And
truck.
the-
The
the truck-
exception for the
truck
truck
and-
drivers.
Blank. And we write in a provision that makes it okay for commercial truck drivers to spend a reasonable amount of time for their state mandated or government mandated rest periods in our community.
I second that.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condit,
Aye.
and Mayor Lopez.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. We do have some new business. Resolution number 2021-06, approving a council policy regarding restrictions on elected officials and employee businesses dealing with the city upon leaving office or employment.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, this item you discussed previously. Upon reflection and discussion with staff and council, we decided we should bring this back as a separate policy. You can make it an ordinance or a policy. We like to avoid ordinances at all possible because they cost more. So we brought this back as a policy. And again, the policy is to restrict either city managers or members of the council from coming back and having certain business dealings with the city within 2 years. The state requires 1. You have the authority to increase it to 2, which you did. And that's what we brought back for your consideration tonight. And the purpose is for somebody like, say, Tom retires, he can't come back and lobby on behalf of a development project, excuse me, within 2 years of leaving work with the city. Still allows people to participate on the other voluntary city matters and commissions, et cetera.
Okay.
But the state regulation is 1 year.
Correct.
Right. I would say, as I did the last time, that I believe it should stay 1 year, that it really is, the onus is on the council to never show favoritism anytime. If we know somebody personally that's coming before the council, we should never be paying favoritism to them. So I believe the 1 year is fine.
So as of right now, it's 2 years. What we voted on at our last meeting is correct?
Yeah, you
I wasn't
decided 2 year, you went from 1 year to 2 years. And we believe this should be brought back separately from the conflict of interest code that it was approved in last time.
Right. that leads me to believe that what we did was something we shouldn't have done. So I think it's as originally written without that motion would make more sense to me. As if that didn't happen, because we really weren't supposed to do it. We weren't supposed to talk about it because it was an agenda item, like I spoke earlier. So are we now sitting at 2 years, or actually we sitting at 1 year because we voted on something that we weren't supposed to talk about? That's my question.
Yeah, I think it's more appropriate this way. It's enforceable that way, but I think it's more appropriate this way. I think the better argument is that it's better this way because there wasn't that notice and discussion to be had ahead of time. So I think you're correct.
It's as it was originally written right now.
It's before you,
Yeah.
it's before you again, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So as of now, we're talking about as it was originally written at 1 year. So I did a little work and research and contacted all of the cities in Stanislaus County, and they all agree that it's they use the state mandate 1 year. No city in our county yet has ever brought this to their council and asked for a change. When asked why, and opinions, just opinions, because there was no need to. The state made it clear what made sense, and all of the cities in our county have all agreed with that. I don't understand why we would change that.
Anyone else?
Well, I brought this matter up simply because of our current state of government in this country, to be honest with you. We have a new president-elect who announced some cabinet members that I'd like to share with you. Janet Yellen, she's going to be the Treasury Secretary. She's the former Federal Reserve Chairwoman. After she was the Federal Reserve Chairwoman, she went on a speaking tour and made $7 million from companies, banking companies, that she was supposed to regulate. And now she's going to be the Treasury Secretary regulating those companies. That's a conflict of interest. I think we should increase it by 1 year. Now, if you want to follow what the state of California says for their conflict of interest, sure, do the 1 year. But if we really think that profiting off of relationships and knowledge that we gained here on this dais as an elected official is right, I simply disagree with that. I don't think we should profit off it. A positive example would be Senator Cannella, who served his time as mayor, went on to serve as senator, came back and chaired our beautification committee. This doesn't bar public officials from commenting at city council meetings or planning commission meetings or being involved in our city. It just bars them from profiting off of taxpayer money from relationships and knowledge that they gained when they were in office. If 2 years is too much for you, we just have a disagreement. But we're not here to profit. We're here to serve. And when we do leave office, we shouldn't profit off of the relationships or the knowledge we gained as elected officials. And if we allow avarice goals to cloud our future after we leave office, we're no better than the corruption that prevails in Washington, D.C. or Sacramento.
Thank you. Councilmember?
Vice Mayor, I know that anyone can come before me, whether it's an ex-council member, a senator that I know personally, and I will not look at them at the time that they spent here and give them any kind of privilege. I just won't do it. And can you not answer that truthfully, that even after a year, if the ex-mayor came before you and he had a project, that you aren't going to base it on the project itself, you're going to look at the mayor. I don't believe that you would do that. So I don't understand why we need to extend it 2 years. I mean, I can sit here and say, I know I won't do that. I don't even need the year because I know that I don't look at any kind of a relationship I have up here with anybody or anyone within the city, and it makes a decision for me. I always try to make the best decision for all of the community. And so again, I'm okay with 1 year because I know I will not look at any kind of relationship I had up here on a dais to make my decision.
Well, again, this isn't about the decisions we make up here. It's more about the decisions we make after we leave,
I understand that.
and making sure that people don't profit off of the years that they spent in office.
I understand that.
Well, but you compared it to something else. And
No, maybe I didn't make myself clear. It's if the former mayor came before us and you want to say he can't come before us for 2 years, is that correct?
I honestly don't believe he should come before for 8 years.
Okay.
But
And that's
we passed
what
2
I'm
years.
saying. He can come before us at a year and 2 months, and I'm not going to look at him and say, oh, you were the mayor for so many years that I'm going to give you special treatment. I'm not going to do that with anybody. And that's what I'm trying to say, that I don't feel we need to do 2 years, that 1 year is adequate. And personally, for me, I don't even need a year because I know I don't make my decisions based on relationships. I base them on, again, what I think suits the majority of the citizens.
Well, again, this isn't about how you make your decisions. It's about what people do after they leave office.
I understand.
And they try to use the relationships they had when they were in office to benefit themselves when they leave.
But aren't they coming before the council?
They could come before the council, the planning commission,
Okay.
work with the city,
So
or they
they-
don't have to come before the council. They could just be a consultant.
Okay. But again, I think the onus is on us that we're the ones who have to stand up and say, I'm making my decision on not you and the fact that you were up here, but on if it's a project or whatever they're bringing forward. I'm not going to give a former council member or a former city manager any more preferential treatment. Maybe I'm not explaining that well to you, but
Well, no, I understand your
Okay.
position. You're going to go through everything and make sure it's okay. What about the council person after you?
well, I don't know.
We're supposed to think long-term and make long-term decisions. This is a long-term decision that hopefully would stay after we leave office.
And I would
Because
hope,
this
and-
is a problem in government, in local government, state government, federal government, where there's a revolving door. People get into politics, they see opportunities, they leave office after they made their relationships, and they go make a lot of money. I don't feel like that's right. And if you do that, that's fine. Go with the 1 year. But I really think it should be increased.
okay, I still believe it's 1 year.
So I go back to the fact that Ceres, California, and all of the cities in Ceres, it would be almost shocking to me that we would make a groundbreaking decision that the state of California and also all the other cities in our county haven't addressed. And probably more than I believe you think this could hurt the city with whatever you think's going to happen with people leaving and come back and making money off the city. I think it puts us in a situation that might be the opposite of that. I think it takes away the ability to possibly utilize somebody's strengths. I think the mayor talked about this last time, and take advantage of the strengths they have and the knowledge they have about our city, and just basically brush them under the rug and say, we're not interested in that. We're not interested in your experience, expertise. I can't believe we would make that decision and leave those people out. And I believe that that's what would happen, as opposed to what you're saying, where people are going to profit off the city of Ceres. Otherwise, a lot more cities in this county and the state of California would believe the same thing.
to be clear, you voted for the 2 years, Councilman. And former council people like Senator Canella still participate in the beautification committee, still attend council meetings, still make their opinions known in series, and share their advice and their wisdom. This is just about profiting after you leave office off of the relationships you built and the knowledge you gained. I think that's wrong. If you're okay with that, great. Do the 1 year, heck, don't do any years if you want. I think we should have more than 1 year. I know the state of California isn't going to address this. And if you're going to leave it up to the state of California to address, we're going to be waiting a long time.
Nor are any cities in our county. I ask all of them. We would be doing something that nobody else thinks is an issue and is even addressed. None of them.
And until somebody
None of them.
stands up and says it is an issue, it's going to remain status quo.
Well, maybe because it isn't. Condit.
I just pointed to one of the highest office in the land where someone made $7 million and is now going to regulate the industries that gave her $7 million.
Pretty sure that's not going to happen in Stu.
Can you be 100% sure?
We're never 100% sure.
So why not increase it by a year?
There's no reason to, and it's never been done before.
But you're not 100% sure.
Not 100% sure about a lot of things.
Well, I'll make a motion to do the 2 years.
I'll second that motion.
Tom,
roll call.
Before we move forward, Mayor Lopez, because this is a new business item, does the council need to open this up for public comment?
Absolutely. Or do we have?
You don't have to ask for public comment on everything, but people have the right to have public comment.
Okay, if that's the case, do we have anybody on Zoom, email, or phone that would like to comment on this issue?
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor and council, before you proceed to a vote, I just want to say something to you. This one's on me. We should have done this the first time around as a separate matter. I just want to tell you that right now publicly.
No worries.
Hey, Tom, you got a bunch of rookies up here. It's not just on you.
Man, I appreciate that. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Rhino,
No.
Councilmember Silvera,
No.
Vice Mayor Condit,
Aye.
and Mayor Lopez. 2-2.
So what does a 2-2 mean, that it stays
Stays at one.
the same?
Stays one
It's the
year.
same.
It stays a 1 year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next. A consideration of the council action to fill the council vacancy.
Okay, Mayor and council, pardon me, I forgot my
That's okay.
glasses
It's
there.
okay.
and
We're waiting for you. No worries.
On November 3rd, 2020, Councilmember Chance Conant was elected to serve as the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors for District 5. As a result, the seats become vacant upon his installation on January 4th, 2020. You basically have two options in this instance. You have 60 days from that January 4th to appoint someone, or call for or you don't appoint somebody by that time, and automatically goes to a special election. The downside of special elections are they cost a lot of money. And that's usually the reason that 95% of the time I see these go by appointment, but that's not required. So you have those two options. So we're just looking for your direction on how you'd like to proceed.
And the appointment, if we do decide to go that route, they're only going to stay the allocated 2 years that were left. from the
Remainder of the
previous
term,
council member.
correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussions on this item as far as the direction you guys would like to go?
Well, I would like to accept nominations and appoint someone from that process. But in the staff report, they have a date of January 12th through the 20th to solicit applications. And I would actually like to extend that to the 26th because we have weekends, but also that they do have a supplemental questionnaire. It isn't just filling out the application. There's a supplemental. I'd like to give them that additional amount of time. And then I think rather than trying to review the submitted applications at a regular council meeting, I would like to hold a special council meeting just for the applications, and I would propose the week of the 2nd through the 4th, because if we took the applications through the 26th, then that would give us enough time to review them and then to hold a special meeting, invite the applicants, and then we could interview via Zoom. It would be done via Zoom, so the public would be able to watch as well.
How is that different from what's proposed?
Well, the difference is that staff has a recommendation of 8 days to receive the applications, and I'm saying 14 days.
In 14 days?
And then to have another step in there that we review the submitted applications and then we decide if we're going to appoint or we're going to appoint one of the applicants, or if we're going to identify the top 3 to 5 candidates to interview at a subsequent council meeting. So I think we should just kind of skip that middle and decide that whoever applies, that we would interview them all. And again, at a special meeting sometime the week of February 2nd through the 4th. And that way it also gives staff time that they can do their next agenda because they will swear that person in at the next regular meeting. I think that would work, City Clerk.
So we would be interviewing these candidates live. Do we have a kind of like a cap of how many people can apply?
Well, just District 1,
Just District 1?
and they have to be registered voters and 18.
They have to be registered voters, okay. I just don't want it to be, 30 people. That'd be wild. But if it is what it is, if that's what's legal.
Get
Well,
the same opportunity.
It is,
yeah.
but I think it's really important that we interview all of them. I don't
Absolutely.
think that we choose 4 out of 5 or whatever. I think we need to interview them all. Again, I think it should be done at a special meeting rather than part of a regular
Yeah.
city council
So
meeting.
if it is at a special meeting, just so I get a better understanding, we'll have the opportunity to discuss the applicants here live and then make a decision that day.
Well, what would happen typically is they would come before us and we would ask our different questions. It would be available via Zoom, so the public would be able to watch it. And then at the end of all of the interviews, I'm going to guess that we all could say who we wanted, and then there would have to be some kind of a motion made on who actually was appointed by us.
I see.
We have the opportunity in a, I don't know, I guess a closed session, once we interview all the candidates to come to talk, to discuss this and come up with.
No,
It has to be public.
yes.
I was gonna ask that question, but. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Rhino.
So I think if everyone agrees to extending the applications to the 26th, would this be the time that we could discuss when our special meeting would be, since everyone is here, or what would we do? City Attorney.
Yeah, you could absolutely do that.
What was the proposed date, council member?
I suggested the week of February 2nd through the 4th.
February 2nd to the 4th.
And what days would be conflicting for you guys on that week?
I think maybe the 2nd or the 4th, because 3rd is packet day for the following meeting, for the following week.
I'm sorry, what?
You agree, Tom? Either the 2nd or the 4th. The 3rd, I would not be, we'd be busy doing the packet for the next meeting.
Oh, I see what
Okay.
you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, so if we receive the applications through the 26th, then you would be able to give us that information and we would be able to hold a special meeting on the 2nd. Does that give you enough time to That would give you enough time to notify and advertise the special meeting, correct?
Special meetings just require a 24-hour notice.
Yeah, so that's
We
a
should be
week.
fine.
Well, the second is Groundhog Day. I don't know if that's an issue for anybody.
That shouldn't be an issue. Should be fine.
And the thing about that, Councilperson Rhino, is because you're selecting that date now, that can be part of our news flash, that it'll be on whatever date is selected by the council. So anybody applying will know when
That's when we're going to do our
Correct.
interviews. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm good on the 2nd, or I'm good on the 4th or the 5th, whatever works for everyone else.
No, that's not the day we're doing the interviews, are we?
Yes.
Yes, it will be the day. Okay.
Second's good for me.
Second's good with me.
Second.
14 days and on the 2nd.
Well, the applications would be January 12th through the 26th.
just for the council, what time in the evening? I suspect 6 o'clock. Is that
Should be
okay?
perfectly fine with me.
I wonder if we want to do 6 in case we have a lot of applicants. What do you think? Do we want to?
6 p.m. should be fine. Gives people an opportunity to
I'm fine with 6.
show up.
6 is okay for you, Vice
Well,
Mayor?
what happens if we have over 10 applicants?
We'll be here all night.
We're gonna be here till midnight on the 2nd. I just want to make sure we're all good with being here till midnight on a Tuesday.
It is what it is.
Are we doing 6 o'clock because that's when we normally have a meeting?
Right.
Well, I believe also if on a standard work day and work week, if people work 8 or 9 to 5, it gives them an opportunity to
Okay,
change their
All
clothes,
right.
do whatever they want to do.
so 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
Is that something we have to motion?
We've got our direct.
Okay.
Is that something we have to motion or
We
is
need
it
to
just?
move motion.
Yeah, just, I mean, the record's gonna reflect you're going to do it by appointment, but you can go ahead and do that if you'd like. Make a motion, either way.
Council member, would that be okay
I'll
with you?
make a motion that we are going to accept nominations and we will appoint someone from that process. We will solicit applications from District 1 registered voters that are over 18 from January 12th through the 26th. And then we will hold a special public meeting on February 2nd at 6 p.m. to interview the applications that we've received.
Second that motion. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rhino,
Yes,
Councilmember Silvera,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Condit,
Aye.
and Mayor Lopez. And passes 4-0.
Thank you. We have no items for the discussion items. Is there any council members that would like to place an item on the agenda?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
I would like to place the establishment of a general plan review committee on a future agenda.
Is that also something we have to motion? Okay, so we're good with that. And anybody else? Okay. Reports? I have a report. Recently, I released the mayor's statement video online. And in addition, we are going to release a New Year's resolution video and several other videos that will show the community what we are hoping to accomplish in the upcoming 2021. So please be on the lookout for that. That is posted on the City of Ceres website. And I do appreciate all the great feedback that we have received and the participation of the council as well. I appreciate everyone here involved and also members of the city and the Unified School District and the police department and the fire department for participating in that. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add to that? Or any reports at all? No. We will now adjourn to a closed session to discuss.
Mayor Lopez,
Yes.
if we could, usually we go around to the department heads to see if there's anything to
Okay,
report.
absolutely. Is
So
there
I
anybody
currently,
from the department that would like to speak?
yeah, I don't have anything to report. We'll go around, but I do know that Supervisor Condit is on, who
Oh,
would
he
like
is. Thank you.
to give a report. So he will be the last one.
Okay.
in the report.
So tonight you guys accepted Eastgate Park, and I just wanted to let you know that the facilities will be opened up tomorrow to the public. The playgrounds, volleyball court, the cornhole, and the horseshoe pits will be opened up, and we will continue to have the large dirt area that we hydroseeded fenced off to try to give it some time to establish. But the most of the facilities will be opened up tomorrow.
Mr. Padilla, are the rest of our playgrounds open, or are we still putting up, I thought we were still putting up signs that they were closed. Is Mr. Damas here?
Yeah, I'm not sure if
There's,
Jeremy's
there's
still
still-
on.
yeah, there's signs on all the playgrounds that they're closed.
So
So
we're
we'll
gonna
put-
open,
We'll
So we're-
put, we'll put signage out there as well.
thank you.
Anybody else?
I know that the HR director, Chief Wise, and Jeremy are on, and in addition to Matt Lohr. Kevin, Jeremy, Teresa, or Matt, does anybody have anything to speak about?
Good evening, Council. Chief Wise here. Just a few things. Happy New Year, and I didn't get a chance at the last meeting to welcome our new council members. Just real quick, the fire department has had no new COVID cases in the last month, so knock on wood, hopefully we keep that up. Also, we started today with our second round of vaccination, so our firefighters are starting to get their second shots. And I'm real happy to report we will be starting our fire academy out at our training center on Service Road on January 19th. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. I think that it's all the department heads, so probably Supervisor Condit.
Hi, thank you, Mr. City Manager, and thank you to council. I hope everybody's having a very happy 2021. I just wanted to update everybody on a recent vaccination rollout from the county as it has to deal with our last meeting, which occurred last Tuesday. But currently, our county has 20,000 vaccines ordered by the Public Health Department and either received by the county or direct shipped to the hospitals. The county is currently in phase 1A of distribution, which includes healthcare workers and first responders. Public health currently has approximately 7,200 doses on hand, 5,000 of which are allocated to facilities as first or second doses. The remaining balance of almost 2,200 are vaccines available for the daily public health vaccine clinics for the phase 1A population tiers. Again, that's healthcare workers and first responders. The county is working on a vaccination live tracker for the website. We plan to have the beginning of this live tracker posted by the weekend with basic data on the number of doses received and allocated through the Public Health Department. I will include this to the council. I will send out an email to your council emails tomorrow, so you have that information. And if anybody in the community asks you about our county's vaccination plan, feel free to share that with them. But if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call directly or send me an email.
Thank you very much. That was the last one. Okay. So now we will now adjourn to a closed session to discuss one threat to the public service facilities. The city attorney will report out. Meeting is adjourned. I don't need donuts. Yes, I know. I don't need no fucking donuts.
Two barely fit now.
The only one that does fit.
Okay, on the closed session item, the council gave direction to staff.